Continuing on with our patterns of organizations, or POO, let's go over what are some compare, contrast, and chronological patterns of organization. So this format's going to be just like the previous formats of the lesson, where I'm going to tell you what each pattern of organization does, and then I'll illustrate by actually showing you some sample essays. And then I'll give you keywords, of course, at the end. So compare and contrast are, well, pretty simple. If I'm comparing things, I'm telling you how they're similar. If I am contrasting things, I'm telling you how they are different. One thing that's great in that compare and contrast is sometimes used to just get the reader's attention. I mean, a contrast will kind of feel like, well, I've been talking about, apples, 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 and then contrast, all of a sudden I'm talking about car tires. That's a very, very quick example of a dramatic contrast that gets the reader's attention. Also, don't forget, contrast is often used to persuade. Here's a sample essay. A wise man once said that working on sales is just like getting a date with a girl. You see, when I first started sales, I'd make a presentation of the best car in the lot and then ask for the order. The customer would refuse, then I'd offer one that was a little bit more affordable than they'd buy. In a similar way, that's how I met my college sweetheart. I approached her and said, "Janice, will you marry me?" She turned up her nose and said no in giggly disgust. Then I said, "How about just a roommate date then?" She agreed to that. We dated right up until we graduated. So, what are some of the words that are letting me know that things are being compared or contrasted? Word similar. Or how about more? And we have one more here that was like. And let's continue on with something a little bit more academic. Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker are similar in a few important ways. Let's discuss just 3. One way is that both are orphans. Luke Skywalker lives with his aunt-uncle, and the same as Harry Potter. However, Luke's relatives are far nicer than Harry's. Additionally, both receive the guidance of a wise old man in their journey through their stories. Finally, both characters receive a mystical talisman. Harry is given a wand, which chooses him. This is similar to Luke's lightsaber. So let's underline some important keywords here. Well, we got similar again, and then we got however, and then we have both. Now, did you notice in here that there were some words that were also listing keywords, like one or additionally? We'll go over this in a bit, but sometimes patterns of organizations are kind of put in a blender and mixed together. But we got both here and similar, which are compare keywords. That is, telling people how they're similar. However is a contrast keyword. If you've read the Harry Potter series, you know how his aunt and his uncle treated him. So, compare keywords. Like, alike. Similar to, the same as, almost identical. Compared to, the same as, in the same way, both. These are all compare keywords talking about how things are similar to each other. Contrast keywords get our attention, and they're about how things are different. Unlike, in another way. However, in contrast, more or less, distinct from. These are words that are telling us that something is different as we continue to read on. Now to chronological. Chronos is all about time, and logical, logos, well, that means study of. In this case, the adjective just means all about time. So, what does a chronological organization do? Well, it tells a story. I mean, you can't actually have a story. You can't move from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3 without Act 1 coming before Act 3. I mean, I suppose you could tell things out of order, but they still have some kind of time order as you're reading them. You can also organize something by the time in which something has happened, or you can just summarize several events that are in sequence. It's important to remember that when I'm organizing something by time order, I could be talking about something from the Middle Ages up until the end of the Renaissance, or I could be talking about the steps to, bake a cake, which is a much shorter time period. Time order can be big or small. Don't forget that. Now to some samples, and I'll highlight some keywords that let me know that these are time order organizations. Ray Bradbury was born in 1920 in the state of Illinois. He described his family as very loving and warm. Between 1926 and 1933, his family moved between Illinois and Arizona. In 1934, his family finally settled in Los Angeles. By this time, Ray Bradbury had already started to write his own stories. He was an avid reader throughout his childhood as well. It was in 1936 that Ray Bradbury began meeting science fiction writers. Only 2 years later did he publish his first story. Sample number 2. Before there was a democracy, there were several changes in government that was handled. One major shift was in the early Middle Ages. During this time, kings tended to be autocrats. However, contrast, mixing things together a little bit. In 1215, the Magna Carta was signed. Continuing on, another major shift was during the Renaissance. Wait, what is the Renaissance? This period began in the 14th century. Made people rethink government, and so on and so on. So, where are my time order transition words? Well, they're pretty easy to find. Here's what they are. Any time preposition could be a chronological keyword. Before, after, or next, or in the past, in the future, tomorrow. Anytime you start to notice that dates, days of the week, or periods, or specific years are mentioned over and over and over again, that's going to be time order. So we got years. We got Monday, Tuesday, 17th August, 1949. There are other, maybe time preposition words that you've never heard, and they talk about things being at the same time, like during, at the same time, while, and simultaneously. These are all time order or chronological patterns of organization. So, your assignment, if you're ready to accept it, is to read the big essay. And then you'll just go ahead and highlight and find some keywords. But wait, not all of these paragraphs are going to use the same pattern of organization. So, I'll ask you to annotate on the edges of this essay which paragraphs use which type of PEO that we've learned so far. Make sure you finish this assignment before you go on to the next pattern of organization, cause and effect, because that one is going to take a little bit more time. Thanks for using Educator.